And here we are for another episode of the Cozy Corner of Cinema. This is episode number 201, being recorded on Thursday, February 5th, 2026. The weather is getting a bit warmer out, but the snow is still pervasive as ever. I tell you, be walking around out there, and we got to make sure not to get that snow blindness on you. I was reading a book a little while ago, a World War II book, about a man who was trapped in the snowy island. I forgot where exactly the island was off of, but he had to travel a very, very far distance. And he talks about in the book, or the biographer talks about in the book, of how, just staring at just the fields of white gave him blindness for a while, that eventually came back. But, you're wandering out in the middle of nowhere. You have no idea what direction you're going in, and you can't even open your eyes. If you can open your eyes, it's just going to make it worse, or you can close your eyes and, hope for the best. Essentially kind of wandering into this sort of white darkness, so to speak. So definitely anytime I'm out there and I start seeing the snow like that and my eyes get a pervasive reaction, that's immediately what I think of is that book, and just how frightening it can be. And also just the cold as well, these mornings that are getting cold, being out there if you're not properly layering up and you just kind of feel it. Man, I was walking the other day and I only had to walk about 5 minutes or so outside, but I felt that cold breeze on my hand, man. I tell you, I had to go inside and couldn't get my hands warming up faster. But anyways, hope you guys are all doing well. I hope you all enjoyed the last episode of Peephole Pictures that I just put up yesterday, talking about Cecil Howard's Firestorm. That was an interesting film to talk about. Actually, it's kind of funny, speaking of these new releases coming out, these new adult films. I was looking at Meloscene putting out a couple new releases here, because, let me pull this up right here, actually. Big title from the acquisition, from VCX, which is a new label for them. A big acquisition right there is Debbie Does Dallas from 1978. Wow, I got that wrong. With Bambi Woods, Herschel Savage, Robert Kerman, Eric Edwards, who's actually was just in Firestorm. I should say Arbola as his adult name. But yeah, that's one that, long-awaited title. VCX's catalog, I think, has quite a number of higher profile adult films, to my knowledge. I think they have The Devil and Miss Jones, which initially I thought was going to be released. If not now, then I imagine it'll be released either next week or later this year. Fingers crossed, because I talked about The Devil and Miss Jones on an episode of Peephole Pictures and just how much of a fan I am of that film. And especially now that I noticed that the Damiano family, or Damiano Films, whatever, they have been touring a 4K restoration in Italy primarily. I think it may have actually played in New York recently as well. I'm not exactly sure. And also, they were showing Deep Throat as well, which I don't know if that's a new restoration or not. I actually don't remember for the life of me who put out that Blu-ray previously. But what was the other movie they were doing as well? I'm trying to remember. It was oh my gosh, I know. Right when I stop recording, it was the Story of Joanna. That's right. So I don't know if VCX actually owns that one as well or not, but to my knowledge, I believe they own, or they had at one point put out a DVD of The Devil and Miss Jones, which may actually still be in print. I think that was a 2-disc DVD to my knowledge. And I haven't actually seen the sequels, but I'm curious about 2 and 3 at least. The website's not loading for me right now. That's right. So hopefully we can get a nice Blu-ray of that. That would be really great to see that release, because with some of the bigger titles that have been announced recently, the acquisition of the Mitchell Brothers films, the Behind the Green Door was a big acquisition, and actually the Resurrection of Eve, which was one of theirs I hadn't seen. I had watched that new release on the Blu-ray, or it was a Blu-ray or it was a 4K, I don't remember. I think it was just a Blu-ray, but I was really impressed with that film, especially since I'm not the biggest fan of Behind the Green Door. That release is a 4K, but I am very curious to rewatch that film on 4K, because I've only ever seen it once on a lower quality sort of version. And that's a film that I find the history and the context to be more interesting than the film itself. Sort of, with the Mitchell brothers really kind of riding the success of that film, and Marilyn Chambers, and her previous sort of ad campaign she was doing for I forgot the company right now. Forgive me, people. Mine's going blank these days. But so hopefully we can get Devil and Miss Jones at some point. And there was a list of I saw online of films that VCX owned, but now it is not going to work for me. So that's okay. I'm not going to spend all day trying to find it here. I was trying to pull up some films to see if I could pull anything here, but actually, let me pause it for a second. Let me see if I can actually pull up this website instead of improvising. Well, I had to pause it briefly. I tried to find the website here. I had it before, but I can't find it now for some reason. But I did find two interesting things. One was an article from 2011 talking about a issue with VCX releasing Deep Throat, because the copyright on that, or the rights on that, I should say, have been kind of murky. And I guess they were unofficially selling it. There was a problem with them selling that, as well as actually a listing for some of their films. And actually, here's the article right here. It's talking about from October 2011, so it's out of date now. From, obviously, out of date, presumably so, is that two Las Vegas adult film distributors have settled their trademark and copyright infringement lawsuit over the nationwide rights to distribute porn classics Deep Throat and Debbie Does Dallas. Arrow claimed XCX was marketing Deep Throat and sequels to the 1972 film on its website without authorization. And I assume when they say sequels, they're just talking about the one sequel, the rated R sequel, which did get a release on a double pack, and I can't remember who it was, but it was a company that was doing a lot of those double packs. Anyways, David Sutton, president of VCX, said he started selling Deep Throat in 2008 because Arrow had refused his repeated requests that it stop distributing two other classic films VCX says it has the rights to, Debbie Does Dallas and The Devil and Miss Jones. So, this is 2011, so you kind of have to take it with, this is almost a 20-year-old article, so you got to really you can't look at it today and try to hold it up to, 2026 standards, so to speak. But I was looking on adultdvdmarketplace.com because I was just kind of curious. And some of the listings here are, they have the DVDs for Debbie Does Dallas, The Devil and Miss Jones. Then there are some that, like Sex World has already been released by Vinegar Syndrome, and that was a VCX title apparently. Aunt Peg, Taboo, American Style, Sex Boat, High School Memories, which is coming to Blu-ray, Inside Desiree Costo, Never So Deep, Dirty Westerns. There's a lot of titles here. It says they also did The Erotic Adventures of Candy and Candy Goes to Hollywood, and both of those were on a double pack, on a Peakorama double pack, which I do have. And actually, The Erotic Adventures of Candy and Candy Goes to Hollywood are both pretty solid. But now, just because they have the DVDs of these, I don't know if that means they still have the rights to them, because there are other ones like Hot and Saucy Pizza Girls, and there's one I just saw that was listed here. I have to go back and find it. Yeah, Sweet Young Foxes. Those have since been released, so I don't know the status of a lot of these, if it is just a case where they had the DVD rights to distribute a lot of these, or if they actually own the copyright. I really don't know. But either way, I think if this is the catalog that they have from them, for one, it's not only the first time that the titles from them have been released, and two, I think that's a really good sign if they've had, or if they're now partnered with Melusine, because then we can get a lot of these titles. Some of these I'm not familiar with, so that'll be interesting to kind of see how that actually goes down. Little Orphan Dusty, I think, didn't that get a? Maybe that didn't get a Blu-ray. I don't remember. I don't remember. Wow, I'm like losing it, man. I don't know if Little Orphan Dusty has a Blu-ray or not. That's crazy. Anyways, cool stuff here. I didn't mean to talk about that as long as I did. I kind of just want to briefly mention that just because of the releases that came out. And I guess may talk more next week at the time of this recording when there's more, when the other titles are going to be dropping. But anyways, we're going to talk about the upcoming Faces of Death remake. Well, I say remake, it's more of a meta kind of sequel. And I say coming soon in that it's coming pretty soon, actually, on April 10th, 2026. Now, there's a poster on IMDb, and I don't know if this is an actual poster or not, because for one, it says it's from Legendary, and I don't think they're distributing it. Two, it says of a release date of 2024. So, I mean, right there, I actually don't know. I think this may be a bloody disgusting film because they posted the trailer before. I don't know. I gotta look at that. But anyways, yeah. So I had been hearing about this. When I first heard the idea of it being remade, I knew it was not going to be a remake. I mean, you're remaking a famous documentary. Also, I gotta say, I'm looking on the Wikipedia here, which you gotta kind of take that with a grain of salt. Production companies Legendary, Divide Conquer, Angry Films, and then distributed by IFC and Shudder, and that's very interesting right there. Let's see. Release. North American distribution rights were acquired by IFC and Shudder with a release date for April 10th, 2026. Pickup shots were finished in March 2024. Blah, 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 blah. Interesting. Okay. Anyways. I don't know who distributed Face of Death originally. Who was the distributor? Aquarius Releasing. I mean, I know Gorgon put it out later, but I don't know if they put out... I don't know what exactly they put out with that. I think the VHS, to my knowledge, which would make sense for that because Gorgon are still around. So I would imagine that is. Let me see if I can find a picture here right now. Somebody who's far more knowledgeable than I am is probably screaming at the microphone, but I'm not going to pretend like I am that knowledgeable. I know Gorgon put them out at some point. Whether or not they put out, I'm trying to find a good picture of the VHS. I can't really find one here. What's this one say? Isn't this a fun show? Me trying to find who puts out these damn movies. Okay, so it was Gorgon, because I found a picture of a VHS here, unless this was a re-release. But anyways, it doesn't matter. Went off on a little side tangent there. But we have the new Faces of Death coming out, and like I was saying before, it's funny because I was interested in this. I was like, all right, I think I've talked about Faces of Death on the show before. It's an interesting. It's much like Behind the Green Door. I think the history of the film is more interesting than the film itself. But it's gotten so little talk that I didn't even realize that the trailer or the teaser released a week ago at the time of this recording, because I haven't heard anyone talk about it. I didn't see it reposted. I mean, I'm also not on social media that much, so what do I know? But yeah, so I watched it. This is from Daniel Goldaber, who has directed he directed two films I've seen, which was Cam from 2018 and How to Blow Up a Pipeline from 2022. Cam is pretty good. How to Blow Up a Pipeline is okay. It's an okay film. I think it kind of loses steam halfway through. But I like the idea of what they're doing here. The teaser as well, it got removed off YouTube for, I think it was... terms being breached or something like that. The trailer was too violent or something like that. Let's see here. What did Bloody Disgusting have to say about it? Their post here about the film. Face of Death remake trailer pulls for violating YouTube's terms of service. The film, okay. Doesn't really say much besides that. Last week's official upload of the Faces of Death remake trailer, which it's not really a remake. It's really more of a meta sequel. Has been removed for violating YouTube's terms of service. Watch the trailer on Bloody Disgusting right now. Filmed back in 2023, the long-delayed Faces of Death remake is finally coming to theaters on April 10th. Okay. So with this one, we have these people who are supposedly recreating the deaths, and the kills, I should say, from Faces of Death. So in this film, the original is a film. Of course, the 1978 film directed by what was his name? John Allen Schwartz. And now in that film, I don't really know how it's going to work because, with the idea of this one is that we have somebody who is a content moderator on YouTube or on some video site, whatever. It says on a video site, but I've seen other places say YouTube, to, kind of go through crazy stuff that gets posted, to take it down. And there's a group, quote unquote, recreating the murders from the original Faces of Death. And I'm very curious how that's going to work, if you're talking about like the actual deaths in the movie, if they're going to throw someone off a building or if they're going to do this and that, or, especially when it comes to the animal stuff, like you just going to go to like a slaughterhouse and just kill a bunch of animals there. I don't know. It's an interesting idea. I'm not really crazy about it being called Faces of Death. The way I see it is that I think something, I don't know, it's kind of kicking around the idea in my head if you called it like the Face of Death. Not to be confused with Death Wish 5, the Face of Death, but sort of the idea of like a screen, like the screen in front of you is now like the face of death. Your television or your iPad or your phone, or you can watch any horrific thing you want at any moment that you want legally. Obviously there's some stuff that is illegal, but the point is though is that you can go online and watch stuff that would make the original Faces of Death look like just a standard documentary. And it's really what it is. It's sort of like, I'm curious about if in the sequel, which is I'm going to call it, it's a sequel. It's not a remake. You can't really remake a shockumentary or a documentary like that. But I'm curious if they'll touch upon the fact of it being mostly fake or altered footage. People talk about, which is funny to watch it now, and you watch it, and the techniques they're using are just so obvious. Infamous scene to talk about this group of cultists where, when they're eating these monkey brains, they're killing this poor monkey with a mallet, and they're going to eat its brains, and then you watch it, and it's like right off the bat, it's sort of like, the lighting is perfect, the audio is perfect, most egregiously they're doing cuts in between. We're never actually seeing, any kind of real damage, because you watch a film, man, where unfortunately an animal is killed, and they're going to show it, man. Especially from this time, a lot of the Mondo films, Mondo Carne, and all these films, these horrific kind of scenes involving animals. Even a film I watched recently, Silip, Daughters of Eve, starts out with an incredibly upsetting sequence where I think there's a bull is beat to death, and it's very hard to watch, or it's very uncomfortable to watch. And, they're not cutting away from that, so that, okay, well, this isn't whatever, 70, whatever. They obviously, did that for real. As opposed to the other animal footage in Face of Death, where we see, traditional kind of slaughterhouse footage. They see a lot of that kind of pop up in a lot of these sort of shockumentaries. Actually, a lot of them even pop up in the Face of Death sequels. That's all real. They're not cutting away and all that. So I'm curious how they're gonna deal with all that. But it's an interesting concept. I don't think Bloody Disgusting has had the strongest track record so far for their films being distributed. They've done, at least that I've seen, they've done The Toxic Avenger, Silent Night, Deadly Night, and what was the one they just, Return to Silent Hill. And it doesn't say that they are putting this out. I know this is IFC, but I think they may have been associated with it at some point. Okay, well, it's just IFC and Shudder. But with it being IFC, and Legendary, I imagine that at least get a limited release theatrically. It says in theaters in April, so we'll actually see if that entails or not. Shudder as well. They've I used to get a lot more of their films theatrically here, and now not as often, at least not as widespread in terms of their releases. But yeah, I'm curious about it. I really have no expectations for it. I don't know. It's I think directly tying it to a film like Face of Death is interesting. I think you probably could have done the same story, but connected to, just people online doing these killings based off something else. Especially now where, Face of Death is I think it's such a unique film because of really everything around it. Primarily the context of it, the history, after the Mondo films, especially, going to a cinema, being like, okay, here's this real death on film, man. This is what you're paying to see. and then, being traded around on videotape and the sort of urban legend of it all and this and that. I think, a lot of that's kind of gone, especially now, because I think while it definitely has that like sort of marquee of like, ooh, this is a big film. I think the general public probably knows about it, but you're not gonna, I think they have the same idea of just like, oh, this is a real death film. This is like, oh, all this real footage and stuff. But now that mystique, I think, is kind of gone, especially when we've had all these releases. We've had the sequels. We've had, a Blu-ray of it that Gorgon put out. We've had John Allen Schwartz put out a book, I believe, called The Real Faces of Death, or it's My Face of Death. It was one of these. It was like a 70-page kind of novella, I guess, that I wanted to read, but it was very short, kind of talking about his experience working on the film and kind of compiling all this footage. And there's like another kind of I don't think there's a lost version of the film. There's another version of the film that I think is supposedly has like more gruesome stuff in it. I really don't know. And of course, all the imitators that came along after it. That basically, I would say more so than something like Mondo Carne. Fist of Death really kind of being the father of what we would now call, or at least what at that time be like a shockumentary film of all the the shocking Asias. Traces of Death, of course. I think it's probably its biggest successor. All of these kinds of Death Files. What was that one? That oh man, I'm not gonna be able to remember the name now. It's by the. Oh boy, it was just the most ridiculous thing. It was from the director did the Necro Files, or maybe it wasn't the same director, but there was one part where they have like this guy, because in like a lot of these movies they have like narrators and stuff. They have this guy. And let's see if I can actually find it here, because that's going to be kind of ridiculous. So it's, hold on, give me 1 second. That's what it was. I found it right here. It was Faces of Gore. It's just as, it is just as tasteless as it comes, man. It is such in bad taste. But because the dude is, and they interviewed the dude in Killing for Culture, and he said he had a lot of regrets about the film. Todd Giersland. But there's all this real horrific footage. Then you have this dude, Vincent Van Gogh, played by Steve Shepard. I don't know if it was him or if it was Todd, because there's a narrator, it says here, and then Vincent Van Gogh is actually on screen. So, okay, it had to be Todd himself. But yeah, he's making all these horrible jokes about love with this like real death footage. It's like, oh my gosh, it's about as bad taste as you can get. But then at one point in the movie, they're like, and now, you've seen this real footage, but how does it compare to a major Hollywood production? And they show clips from this movie, The Necro Files, from 1997, which is the most ridiculous stuff. And it's like, come on, man. It's sort of like you ain't going to be watching The Necro Files and being like, man, that's just as grotesque. That's just as crazy. You're watching, Faces of Gore, because they made a Faces of Gore, too. They may have even made a third. I have no idea. But it's just so ridiculous. But yeah, it's just a different era now. I guess before tying it directly to Face of Death, I think is interesting. But, I wonder kind of if contemporary younger audiences even care about that. 'Cause I think context like that is so important, which is, the Mondo movies were so important contextually in their own right. This idea of just like, we're going to take this camera around the world to see these taboo kind of rituals and how these other cultures live. And, a lot of it was either faked or it was kind of, exaggerated or all that, or we're, you were getting some narration of situations that aren't even correct. So you could say like, oh, these people, they when they're not doing this, they're eating the brains of whatever, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, well, you just make that up. Where are you even getting this from? But again, it's like, wow, now we go online, we can see any part of the world that we want to. You go online, hey, I want to see what this town in Ireland looks like, or this street in Africa, or whatever. But back then, it's like going to the cinema, and it's like, we're going to see something so far out there at different parts of the world. And I think that, Mondo Carne and a lot of those films and like Face of Death, they're not ones I'm ever going to watch again and again. You watch them once for contextual sake, just to say that, like, okay, I have an idea of it, but, I can't stress enough sort of like the the allure of that, of just being like, wow, I'm seeing, or like, look at all the nudie cutie stuff. I mean, it was all these films where it's like you're going to go there, see a bunch of naked ladies, playing volleyball or sunbathing or suntanning, whatever. So now it's a different point. I mean, that's what I was talking about with Killing for Culture, is that, kids now, I think, they don't have to, try to find a tape or try to, oh man, have you seen this crazy footage, this guy blowing his brains out? Now, I mean, I think young kids, anyone of any age can go online and just watch the craziest thing you've ever seen in your life. I mean, I remember when I was younger, people in school, were talking about like, oh man, you see this crazy, this guy got beheaded and there's this crazy, gross video. I mean, look at something like Two Girls, One Cup. That was like a big viral thing because it was sort of like something you could. It was like a dare. It was like, oh, how much can you watch this disgusting sort of video and all that? And it'd be different if we sort of like, okay, let's get a tape, like a VHS tape, and like say in the middle of your shockumentary, you put something like that in there. It's like, oh, there's this crazy scene in the movie. These two girls, they start doing this crazy stuff, and so I'm curious about what they're going to do with this. I really, like I said, I haven't heard anything. I haven't heard anyone be talking about it. It's coming out soon. It's got a known enough cast. Barbie Ferreira, who I think she was on the show Euphoria. Yeah, actually, she was on Euphoria. I never watched. I actually didn't even know she was in that movie. I saw her for the first time, and Bob Trevino likes it from. I saw it last year. I guess it's technically 2024. Darcy Montgomery, who I don't know him. I think he might be on Stranger Things. I have no idea. Okay, he was on Stranger Things. I only watched the first season. I couldn't tell you. Then you have like Charlie XCX, who I read somewhere else. She has like a small role in the film. She's like a pop kind of musician. Actually, funnily enough, she has a movie out this weekend. So it's like bigger stars to kind of, bigger names to kind of push us out to the forefront. It doesn't look like kind of like a cheapy, or it doesn't seem like a cheapy sort of thing. I don't know. I'm very curious about it though. But it was just funny that this popped up, and even amongst my horror acquaintances, I didn't hear anyone talk about it. And I don't know, they just don't care or what. But it's just funny as all. I'm usually pretty good about being on top of stuff like this. But I don't know. We'll see. We will definitely see what happens in April, and I don't know. Hope it's all right. I'm curious to see what they do with it. Maybe it'll kind of bring up some of the real history of Phase of Death and sort of like, like I said, the production of it and how it kind of came to be, a lot of it being fake. I don't know. We'll see. But I'm definitely, and I'm repeating myself here, so I'm not going to keep going on. But I wanted to at least mention that. And, I think that actually is going to do it for this episode. Yeah, man, it's a wonderful day outside, man. I tell you, I mean, I had to be outside earlier, and it's a little chilly, not gonna lie, but overall it is very nice. Make sure if you got your sunglasses and you're around snow to use them. You don't be getting that snow blindness I'm talking about at the beginning of this episode. But I appreciate you guys listening. Appreciate if you checked out the new People Pictures. It really means a lot. And yeah, man, that's really I got to say about it. So you guys take care. Stay warm if you're in a cold area. If you're in a warm area, stay cool, all that stuff. That's all I got to say. So thank you so much for listening, and until next time.